Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 135 of the Veterinary Behaviour Chat podcast. And I'm actually recording from a slightly different venue today. I'm actually in the UK, so I'm not at my office, at my desk in the UAE. I'm here in the UK, which is a bit windy and a bit sunny and a bit rainy, typical kind of April weather. But we've got one of our super popular speed coaching episodes today, and we're joined by the wonderful Nikki McLeod, and I will let Nikki introduce herself in a second. So just to go over the rules of the speed coaching game again, we're going to do a quick fire question. We've got 15 minutes on the clock. I'm going to set a timer. Wherever we get to at the end of the 15 minutes is where we get to. Hopefully we'll have somewhat of a conclusion, but I think it's going to be a bit more of a discussion anyway. I am aware of Nikki's question, but I haven't really prepared anything in advance. So it's going to be a bit of like an off the cuff kind of conversation, which I think will be really good fun. So welcome, Nikki. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much.
So do you want to give us a bit of an intro into who you are and what you do? And then we'll get cracking with a question.
Sure. So I'm a registered veterinary nurse of 26 years up in rainy Scotland today. I am an associate clinical animal behaviourist. I have a great interest in emotional health of the animals that come into the vet practice. So hence the reason for my question today.
Perfect. All right, I've just set my timer on my clock, which is what I was just doing then. So I've just set my timer. So I'm going to press go, and then Nikki, go ahead and start your question. So here we go.
Okay, so as a registered veterinary nurse, we are very much interested in obviously the physical aspect of the pet that's in front of us. And I feel sometimes that the emotional health of the animal sometimes is forgotten about. And sometimes I feel very much like I'm an island in a sea of sharks. Sometimes I'm the only one that is fear-free certified, low stress handling, etc. How can we in the veterinary profession be more behaviourally aware?
Yeah, what a great question. And I think this is something that all of us, or most of us, or many of us that working in the veterinary behaviour space face often, regularly, from time to time, depending on where it is that you work and how you're set up. And I think, obviously we'll have a conversation about it. But for me, I think there are a couple of key points. I think one of the things I always think about is change takes time, and change isn't always comfortable. And I think many vets or people working in the veterinary space or profession find that whole idea of change quite stressful potentially. So I think, being aware of that and trying to make incremental changes rather than, a whole big, like, change everything all at once. I think that might be one of the things. And then the other couple of things that I always think about is, as vets, data is important and the clinical outcomes of our patients is important. So trying to make behavior more of a clinical skill rather than a wishy-washy, fluffy, nice to have, which it can sometimes be viewed as, and really getting specific about how stress affects the body and the physiology and how that can potentially be detrimental to our patients, whether they're in for a one-off visit or whether they're hospitalized for a period of time. I think that can be really impactful for vets, helping them understand, how those stress hormones and those stress cascades can affect their patients. And I think the other thing, the data piece, is that whole idea about show, don't tell. So convincing by doing and letting them see actually how it works in front of them rather than just talking about it. I think that some of those things would be points to sort of start kind of hooking onto. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I feel that we've improved in years. Yeah. You've been qualified as a vet as long as I've been qualified as a nurse, and there's been so many changes over the years. And we do have schemes like dog-friendly practice, cat-friendly clinic, etc., which are amazing tools. I just find it difficult that sometimes they're just, with some, it's not everyone, but some particular veterinary professionals just see it as a tick box for the kudos. Yeah, we'll be a cat-friendly clinic, but actually no, we'll still scruff cats and we'll still pin down dogs, etc. And it can be really difficult when that just totally goes against your values. And we're not doing it as a tick box exercise, we're doing it for animal welfare. And that's certainly something I really struggle with.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And that's one of the things that I always say is hanging a certificate on your wall doesn't make you a cat-friendly clinic or a dog-friendly practice or whatever it might be. You actually have to practice what you preach. But if I think back to, so we became a cat-friendly clinic at German Veterinary Clinic in Abu Dhabi. We became a cat-friendly clinic back in 2014. And I'm going to be completely honest and say we hung the certificate on our wall in 2014, but we probably actually didn't function as a cat-friendly clinic until probably a few years after that. Because I think the hanging the certificate on the wall put a bit of a stake in the ground to say this is how we would like to be, or this is who we would like to be. But then actually becoming that took time, and it took that time to train the whole of the team and create awareness around the whole of the team, and then you'd lose team members and then new people would come in and you'd have to start the whole process back from scratch again. So even for a practice like mine, who now in 2026 we are very much that and we live that, but it took time from the moment we hung the certificate on the wall until we actually became that. But it's having that then, not just hanging the certificate on the wall and then saying, right, job done, off we go back to our old ways. It's then committing to that process of change, but not underestimating how long that can take and how difficult that can be.
I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is that it's the mindset, and everybody has different mindsets, and it's teaching by example, isn't it? I definitely do things differently from other people. We are sometimes let's just get the job done, and sometimes, very occasionally, that is the situation. But for example, an animal coming in for a nail clip, it's usually not an emergency nail clip. So if that animal is stressed, do we really need to just proceed to get it done? And I think that's where it can be really, really difficult to work with other people that have that different mindset. They're just like, no, we're not going to. They're maybe looking at it from the client's point of view, is that we don't want to bother the client to get them to come back another time and maybe pay a little bit of extra money for pre-veterinary pharmaceuticals. But at the end of the day, we are there for animal welfare. And it can be really, really difficult to say this would be the ideal situation, is that, yes, the nails are long, but how about we book you back in a couple of days' time? We'll have pre-veterinary pharmaceuticals on board. Let's set up the trigger stacking, or stop that trigger stacking. Let's make sure that you're arriving in a great manner for the animal to feel less stressed. Let's get you straight into the consult room rather than waiting in a busy waiting room, etc. And sometimes that can be really difficult when that's the way you think, but not everyone thinks that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a couple of things that really sort of were big shifts in what we did was having a couple of stakeholders that were really invested in the process. So my then head nurse, now operations manager, Nora, she's one of those people. I had a couple of vets that joined the team that also really bought into things. And I think having a couple of those key players that, like you say, will advocate for it, I think that's an important one. And that's obviously, for me, that's a slightly different situation because I was the person hiring and I could make those choices. But when you're not, I guess that's difficult. And it then becomes about playing the long game of just showing up every day, representing your ideas, re-educating, re-showing, and hopefully, converting some of those team members to your way of doing things, which is definitely easier when the culture is predominantly like that, right? When you have more and more and more people in the culture that are thinking and working in that way, then it becomes easier to convert the rest, if you like, than if you're the one that's at the beginning of it. But yeah, those couple of key people, and understanding always that it's a long game you're playing. It's never going to be a short game. I think that those are a couple of key skills, or key things to think about.
What do you think we could do for the future? How can we bring in people that have that kind of mindset?
I mean, I think everything starts at grassroots, right? So educating vets from the bottom up, so they're coming out into practice already with a different mindset, so that we have more opportunity to recruit somebody who is of that mindset already, because there are just more of them out there. I think that's one thing. So, targeting the vet schools, and I know that is changing slowly but surely. But I think, I guess if you're a practice that is looking to recruit more people like that, you need to have management or whoever it is that's decision making and responsible for recruitment in your practice, is having those guys on board. And then, just kind of recruiting to value, in terms of to values, I should say, or value set in terms of, having an understanding about that sort of behavioral piece, or that stress-free approach, or whatever you want to call it. But that again, it requires a bit of a team approach. I always say as well, like, what I found is that when you recruit somebody that culturally fits into your team, there's a lot less chance of you losing them again. And that's really positive from a management point of view, or to present to management, because we all know how expensive recruiting is, and losing team members, and, the upheaval that causes. So having a team that's coherent from a values perspective is a much more stable team with a lot more longevity, I think.
Definitely. And you're right in the fact that it is changing at grassroots level. I mean, when I did my postgraduate diploma at Edinburgh University, all their staff are fear-free certified. It's just not an option, you have to do it. And I think that's wonderful, because when I trained years ago, you never really got much training on behaviour, emotional health, etc. You were, particularly in the nursing, it was very much, yes, having the caring attitude, but sometimes thinking about the emotional health of the animal actually should be at the forefront. And sometimes it's just not, is it?
Yeah. But that's such a great example, Nikki, though. I mean, think about that. Everyone that works at that vet school has to be fear-free certified. I mean, that is already, like, what a huge difference that is. And I think there are so in my practice as well, everyone that walks through the door, whether they're a receptionist or a, pet relocation person, same thing, they're all fear-free certified. And it's almost like a condition of employment. So if you want to work here, we require you to do this. How do you feel about that kind of thing? And it, starts to filter out the people that really do want to sort of embrace that way of working. But I mean, if we think about it, and you're right, you and I both qualified, I think, probably in the same year. So if we think back over our careers, the changes that have already happened, and I think that's somewhere where sometimes we can just get caught up in the weeds, when we've had a bad day and the emotional health hasn't been maybe considered as much as we would like it to. And, you have had to rush a certain procedure or something, but then kind of taking that sort of helicopter view and thinking, hang on a minute, actually look at what's happened over the last 26 years, 27 years. And, we just need to keep building on that.
Yeah, that then moves on to the caregivers. Then they see the difference that it makes. I mean, the amount of feline caregivers that say to me, my cat's never normally as chilled as this, as they're sprawled on a pheromone sprayed towel, really nice and relaxed, purring and drooling, and you're just like, yeah, these little things do make a difference. And then the client makes a difference, and then the client will come back, because particularly with cats, they're obviously not that interested in wanting to stress their cats out, so they would rather not come to the vets. So it's all these little domino effects that you can have, isn't it?
Yeah. And also it sets a standard, right? I mean, those caregivers that have experienced that type of veterinary care and then perhaps go somewhere else where it's different, that will then cause them to think and make a choice, or to understand actually what the new standard or the new norm should be. So it's incrementally shifting things, whether that's from, grassroots university level, or how we do things in practice, to the expectations now that the caregivers have, because they've experienced how it should be done. So it's like you say, those little domino effects and those little shifts that I think can make such a huge difference.
Definitely. There's hope for the future, isn't there? It sometimes it can be really difficult when you do have days that caregivers and staff and animals, it just doesn't merge together really well, and you're just like, why am I doing this? So it can be really difficult.
100%. And there's, there have been occasions where, even I've caught myself out thinking, oh, bloody hell, let's just get the job done. And then you think, no, hang on. Stop, breathe, think. But I think that's normal. That's human nature. That's the nature of the job. Sometimes we also need to understand that the veterinary profession is highly pressurized. We're all under pressure to perform and to get the job done and to keep management happy and all that sort of thing. But I think you're right. There absolutely is hope for the future. And there are already such big changes happening.
Definitely. So for somewhere like your own practice, then, does that mean that you're always looking to improve?
100%. 100%. We're always looking to improve. And the job is never done, right? Like, it's never over. It's never, again, like that. Great, we've made it. We are now a cat-friendly clinic and there's nothing more to be done. And I think also as things develop, as new medications come out, now with the advent of Tessie, that's something that we didn't have just a few years ago when I started my residency. So, of course, everything changes and shifts and improves. The number of times that we've changed our rooms around and thought, actually, it's ever evolving. It never ends. The job is never done. Yeah.
Definitely.
Is that the same for your practice, do you think?
I'm trying. It's leading by example, isn't it? It's when you always have turnover, so then you always have new staff that come in and go, why do you have the towels on the table? Why do you smell funny because you've sprayed yourself with Fellaway on the top and you've sprayed yourself with Adaptil on the bottom? And you then explain why you've done that, and you're just like, well, it means that the cat is getting obviously the close body comfort from me.
There
we go.
But just on that note, though, I've actually never heard that before. Fellaway on the top, Adaptil on the bottom. Of course, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because the dogs are coming into the consult room. They're obviously going to be at low leg level. The cats are on the top. It's species specific, so it doesn't matter. So as long, because that's basically why I start 15 minutes before my first appointment, is that I spray my towels, but I also spray myself. So I obviously have to watch that I don't set my asthma off. But it does work, because I do feel like my cats and my dogs that come into the appointments are a lot more relaxed.
Yeah. See, every day is a school day. I had never thought about Adaptil on the bottom and Fellaway on the top. That's definitely something. See, that's something that I'm going to be taking back now to my practice and saying, guys, have you ever thought of this before? So, yeah. No, I think just to kind of summarize everything, I think there definitely is hope. And I think we have to be so proud of how far we've come as a profession, I think. And yeah. There are going to be tough days. There are going to be moments. We're all human. Like I said, we're in an industry that gives a lot. So there are going to be those moments that we just sometimes blow our tops and go, it's not working. But then we take a step back. And I think you and I, the beauty of it is that you and I, we've been around long enough to have seen that change. And that is something that is very impressive and very beautiful to see.
And I think it's something that we always have to keep in the back of our minds, is that how it used to be is not how it is now.
Yeah.
Every day, because how it used to be every day was pretty horrendous. And I am definitely quite shocked at some of the things I used to do as a student and newly qualified. And now as a nurse in her twilight years, it's definitely improving. So we just have to keep improving.
Yeah, absolutely the same, Nikki. Me too. I mean, so when I graduated from Munich vet school. We used to use washing clips to immobilize cats when I was at Munich. They never got sedated for x-rays. And again, we're talking, 27 plus years ago, but it just goes to show how far we've come. And we used to be heavy on the cat sometimes with restraint, up to even 15 years ago. No, not 15. Yeah, maybe. So, and we have to also give ourselves grace for having gone through that journey and knowing better and then doing better.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite quotes. Once you know better, you do better.
Exactly. Well, as ever, it's been such a lovely conversation. I always love chatting with you. And I think we always have really good conversations around this particular topic, because I know it's something that's close to both of our hearts. But yeah, it's definitely something that we have to keep talking about. So thank you for posing that question and for getting the conversation rolling.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to know more about you, because you are a huge advocate for other nurses, other veterinary nurses getting more involved with behavior, where can people find you if they want to know more about what you do?
I am mainly on Instagram under Feeling Fabulous Vet Nursing, but I also have my own podcast under Nurse Positivity, which yourself has already been on as well, because I really like speaking to other veterinary professionals, but mainly nurses, because obviously that is my main aim, is to try and bring the behaviour world and the veterinary nursing world together and see it more as a collaborative affair, not only in yourself, but also working with each other.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so everyone knows where to find Nikki. Please check out her podcast and also her other resources if you're a nurse listening, and you're interested in getting a little bit more behavior savvy. Yeah, so thank you so much for your time, Nikki. Thank you so much for chatting through this topic with me. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have another conversation on a podcast somewhere soon. And thank you guys for tuning in and listening. I hope this has resonated with you. I hope this has given you a little bit of food for thought. And I very much look forward to chatting to you all next week for episode 136. Bye for now.